Hello everyone, my name is Demismu and this is my assistant the Foot. Today we'll talk about Socrates. Socrates marks a change in the history of Greek philosophy. The pre-Socratics were primarily interested in the question of nature and the cosmos. They would ask the question about the origin of everything that is. They asked, where does the world come from? What is the original material that things are built out of? And they would give answers like water, fire, love, and hate. These were metaphysical and cosmological questions. Socrates asks another kind of question. He asks, what does it mean to lead a good life? The subject he is primarily concerned with is that of ethics. Now the pre-Socratics also touched upon such questions, but Socrates from the start makes his main subject of inquiry the individual's conduct in relation to other individuals. Socrates was thought of as a strange figure by his contemporaries. He would hang around the streets of Athens and talk to anyone who was willing to talk to him. He never wrote anything, and everything we know about him comes from those who knew him, like his pupil Plato. And Socrates had many pupils, mostly young people interested in the uncommon things he had to say. He was not a teacher in the usual sense of the word. He did not give lectures. Instead, his method was to engage in conversations and ask questions. The questions would have the form of what is? So he would ask, what is justice? What is courage? What is beauty? He observed that people often talk about justice. They say, he is a just man. That was a courageous act. But he also noticed that although people talk about something being just or unjust, they rarely focus on the question, what is in fact justice itself? What is the thing, justice, beauty, courage, that we often use to describe someone? How can we know if some act is just if we do not know the answer to the question of what justice is in the first place? So Socrates would ask questions and then wait for answers. And he would find these answers insufficient. One conversation is about justice, and Socrates asks, what is justice? His conversation partners answer that justice means helping friends and harming enemies. In other words, we give to each what they deserve, help a friend, do harm to an enemy. Now, although at first this might seem like a good answer, Socrates shows that it is not entirely correct. Helping friends and doing harm to enemies is not a good measure of justice because sometimes, for example, we do not know who our friends or enemies are. We might mistake someone for a friend who turns out to be a secret enemy. So if we follow this idea of justice, we might in the end act unjustly. And furthermore, even harming enemies to Socrates does not seem as something a just man would do, because then the enemy will suffer injustice. So although the answer might be correct to a degree, it is certainly just to help a friend in need, it is not a proper answer to the question of what justice is. A proper answer to this question for Socrates would be a definition of justice. In other words, that without which justice would not be what it is. And definition was what Socrates was looking for. A definition or a concept of justice is different than what someone might personally think what justice is. They differ from opinions. Definitions are universal and valid for all examples. So a definition of a human being is not humans are like Socrates, because although all humans share common traits with Socrates, they speak, they live with each other, in a lot of ways not all humans are like Socrates. Some are not as old as him, others are women. A definition would aim to focus on the universally valid feature of what it means to be a human being. One traditional example being humans are rational animals. In the same sense, a definition of justice would focus on the essence of justice, something we will talk about when we get to Plato. So Socrates would ask questions, show that individuals' examples are merely that, examples, and then lead his conversation partners to definitions through dialogues. Which is why he termed his method of teaching midwifery, assisting in the birth of knowledge, as opposed to merely transmitting ready-made definitions. And this was important because according to Socrates, knowledge of what is right, contained in the definition of justice, courage, or goodness, is a prerequisite of acting right. In other words, acting justly, courageously, or good. Socrates himself aspired to arrive at this knowledge. He was known for admitting his ignorance of these things, such as justice, courage, or goodness. He would say, the difference between me and others is not that I know the definition of something and others do not. Instead, I know that I do not know. Others think they know. We all talk about justice, and most people think they know what justice is when they actually do not. Socrates admitted this. He admitted that he knew nothing in advance, and this was known as Socratic irony, admitting ignorance in advance on a subject one aspired to teach about, which was the way he began his conversations, as a collective undertaking to arrive at knowledge. In the end, Socrates was sentenced to death for his teaching activities by the Athenian authorities. One among the accusations was that he corrupted the youth of Athens, going around and telling young and curious people that those who think they know, such as prominent and powerful Athenians, actually do not know, did not go over well with the authorities. Claiming that people who talk about justice actually do not know what justice is was not the best strategy to stay alive at the time. Still, being sentenced to death by his own city, Socrates accepted its judgment. He refused the opportunity to flee the city and willingly drank the poison which was given to him. Thank you very much, and until next time.